Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining and welcome to another episode of The Crunch. It's Rebecca Wettemann here with Patrick. Can you say hi? Oh, thank you. Very nice. It's been a really busy couple of weeks. We think July, August is supposed to be kind of the lull period for tech. It doesn't seem like we have a lull anymore. We had Salesforce announcing the Bluebird acquisition, really adding to its Sales Cloud AI arsenal from an agent perspective. Some big exits and big questions for the future of Five9, certainly, as we see what happens with their executive team moving forward. And obviously, Salesforce and ServiceNow announcing a big joint investment in Genesys, which is certainly an interesting topic to bring up today, since my guest is from Genesys. I'm delighted to have Rahul Garg here with us to talk about CCaaS and CRM convergence, experience orchestration, and what's happening in the space. Rahul, welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. Appreciate you taking the time. So exciting news from an investment perspective from you guys, but I don't really want to go down that road. What I'm interested in hearing first from you is, as we think about from a product perspective, what's been happening at Genesys and why are customers and partners so excited about what you guys are delivering from a product perspective today?
Yeah. So just a little bit about myself. I am the VP of product for our AI portfolio. And the reason I think a lot of customers are excited is we did release our first agentic AI capability with virtual agents in June, and we released our AI Studio. And what that allows our customers to do is actually start building and implementing agentic systems in the real world with the right guardrails that you would expect from Genesys. And so
yeah, and I know, everybody's been talking about it agentic for a while, but I'd love to kind of drill down a little bit on what's your definition? What does this look like? And sort of what's the reality for customers now, and how do you help them get there?
Yeah, so I think agentic is probably an overused word and lots of definitions in the market, right?
Yeah.
If you think of the true definition, it is autonomous AI, where it's not following instructions, it's more following goals, right? You tell it, this is my goal, and these are the tools I'm going to give you to achieve that goal, right? And then AI kind of makes that reasoning decision capability on its own. What we've heard from a lot of our customers is they're just not ready for that full autonomy, right? Letting it out the door, letting it do things without being able to trace, understand, test it in a way and make sure it's somewhat repeatable, right? And a lot of that autonomy currently is prone to some hallucination, right? If the tools aren't right or the data isn't right that it's using to make those decisions. So with the agentic framework we've released, it's really driving a hybrid approach where you are still giving it instructions, and then that's the guardrails of what it's making those reasoning decisions within, right? So you're telling it, here are your instructions, here are your tools. These are the steps to follow for this process, right? So now from a customer perspective, my conversation is a lot more easier with a virtual agent. It isn't as robotic, right? It's not 1, 2, 3, I can't fall out of that. 1, 2, 3, I get stuck in the same place. It's a very open conversation. I can ask questions in the middle of my flow. We can go find that answer, but continue you through that flow, right? Similar to what you expect from a human agent. And so what we're seeing with a lot of customers is this is actually helping them roll out agentic AI, start getting value, right? The ROI quickly, and then start investing, start getting the trust in these AI systems that they can add more and more use cases to.
Yeah, you brought up such an important point, which is, I think we got so excited about agentic and everybody definitely jumped on that from a branding and marketing bandwagon. And I think we've seen customers go from sort of FOMO, fear of missing out, to fear of FOMO, fear of messing up.
Yeah.
Right. They want to make sure that what they're getting out there, particularly if it's touching customers, has really been tested, reviewed, and can be managed on an ongoing basis. And I think there's also a fear out there of, even if I get something that's up and running and accurate today, I have to be able to really have observability and be able to manage it over time to make sure that I know that it's not going off the rail. I think there's a perception out there with agentic that the AI could take a turn on its own without that kind of clear instruction.
Yeah, and there's two parts to that, right? One is AI learning on its own, or letting it kind of just self-improve, right? And in those cases, we've spent a lot of time making sure that admins have the tool to know how to improve the AI, but it doesn't automatically do it, right? So we're still keeping a human in the loop to say, hey, because you might have a conversation with a brand and you might say, hey, this was the worst conversation I had, but it's probably it might have been on target with exactly the brand policies, but we don't want to take your feedback without having somebody look at it to say, Rebecca's just mad that she didn't get the refund she was looking for, right? And so we're seeing a lot of that of, how do we make sure those guardrails are in place so AI doesn't just learn on its own, right? And that's how we're getting things out the door. And we've seen use cases where AI goes out the door. If you turn it on fully on its own, inevitably it's going to make the wrong decision, because if you're talking to hundreds of thousands of humans, right, not all of them will be satisfied.
Right. You're going to get some inputs that aren't normal.
Yeah, exactly.
So you mentioned before too about kind of getting rapid time to value for customers and getting provable ROI, and that's obviously been a challenge for some folks in the space. What are you telling customers in terms of what they should expect as they're rolling out agentic capabilities? What's the kind of deployment time, build time, testing time, optimization time? And I know it's going to be all over the place, but I'm curious kind of what sort of guidance you're giving them.
Yeah, so one of the benefits of the systems we're releasing is they aren't throw everything you have away. They're additive to those. So think of a virtual agent. You might have a bot today. You can upgrade it to a virtual agent and then start adding agentic flows for certain use cases. So if you're trying to collect credit card information, you don't need an agentic system to do that. You need DTMF support or regex rules.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're trying to assess a problem, right, that's where an agentic system really can come in, have that back and forth with the user, understand all the different variables that might be involved there. So what we're doing for customers is our new AI Studio allows them to actually just use an AI prompt to say, I want to define a process. These are the steps I have. Go define, and then allows them to test that in real time. We're talking about, if you think of the past, right, you had an SOP document, you took that, you wrote all those rules, you wrote all the different variations of that flow, months on end to get that right, doing the testing back and forth. Now with a prompt, you're talking about seconds, right, where the instructions are written, then you can modify the instructions a little bit. You can add some guardrails within the instructions. You can continue, improving them, but you can start testing these within minutes, right? To say, hey, does this flow work? Now, the things that you still need to do are data actions to connect to backend systems, right? We're not removing that, but what we're doing is making that building of the flow much easier, much quicker for our customers.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I talk about value to customers, depending on the use cases, you can start seeing value within days, right? Because you can launch new flows very quickly, very easily, versus spending months on end getting a new flow up and running. And so just like we do, right, when we talk to our customers about continuous delivery, right, you make a roadmap, get a flow out there, start getting a return on your deflection or your AHT reduction, and then reinvest that in the next flow, right? And the way I look at AI is it has to become a self-funding roadmap, right? The true promise of AI is it reduces your cost. So how does that reduction of cost actually return your ROI so you can invest it in the next set of things you want to automate?
Yeah, I mean, I think the self-funding model is something that we've always thought about in the software as a service space, and we kind of got away from that for a little bit.
We're starting to see it though now with AI, with co-pilots, right? From last year, we saw things like summarization automatically started reducing ACW. People saw actual dollar savings by taking 15% of that time and reinvesting the agents back into those calls. We saw HT come down. And so all of those added together just continues to self-fund these solutions that are going out the door, right? Most contact centers are somewhat flat in terms of the number of people they're adding. So AI is helping them actually hit their targets or SLAs that they're looking for.
Right. I want to go back to something that you said that I thought was really interesting about do you need AI or not? And the reasoning piece of this, like solving a problem is a great example of where you've got multiple variables that a reasoning engine may need to think about. But it seems to me that a lot of these initial use cases that people are thinking about as AI use cases could be very much declarative in nature and don't require really the reasoning or the AI piece of this.
Yeah. It's tough to say, right? Looking at our customers, they kind of go back and forth in terms of where they want to use AI, how declarative they want to make it.
Yeah.
But it all varies, right? We have some customers that are ready to go all in. We have some customers that are a little bit bullish, but frankly speaking, most customers I talk to like the approach of, hey, I have control of AI. I can really drive this in a way that's safe, secure. I can meet my objective, right? Every board meeting today at the C-suite is talking about AI, right? So all of the pressure is coming on how do we use AI to reduce costs, drive up satisfaction, drive up experiences, and it's been something at Genesys we do all the time. We've been talking about the AI Experience Contact Center, right? That's the software we build. AI is in the DNA of everything we do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, obviously, you've been in the AI space for a long time, even pre Genesys. So you've seen how this stuff has evolved, and it's certainly been really interesting to watch. But I want to change gears a little bit, because one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot is sort of the orchestration piece of this. And obviously, we've heard the orchestration story start to come out from other folks, but it's something that you guys have been talking about for a while. Can you talk a little bit about orchestration and sort of Genesys' view of the orchestration world?
Yeah, I'd say probably 5 years ago, 3 years ago, when we started talking about this, orchestration was using AI to figure out the right API call to call and actually manage that full end-to-end conversation.
Right.
Now, what we're seeing, especially with vendors, partners of ours like Salesforce and ServiceNow, right? We know that Genesys is not the only game in virtual agents. They're going to have their own virtual agents. And if you think of the people we're all serving, I'm serving a different set of people. ServiceNow is in the same company serving maybe an IT help desk, right? But they have an agent, they have AI agents. So how do we connect these things together? And the way the market's moving and what we're investing a lot of our time and focus in is how do we call these other agents and orchestrate multiple agents together, right? So in the past, if you look at humans, they would just transfer you between contact center levels or queues. We don't necessarily want to transfer you over and just have you start over with a new virtual agent. So we're trying to say, can we use MCP protocols or agent-to-agent protocols? And there's a lot of, I think, first time in a long time, the market has come together and said, hey, we should do this together. This should be the protocol. It's starting to feel like the new HTTP, right? The new internet protocol is going to be this directory of agents that you say, hey, I want to add these agents as tools to this agentic framework. Mm-hmm. So we are seeing actually a partnership across the ecosystem, right? Whether it is the big vendors like AWS, Anthropic, to the point solutions or the vendors around CRM solutions, and then ourselves, right? We're all kind of starting to play in the same ecosystem. We know that we have to play together. We need to connect together because orchestrated experiences start front office, but also do back office, side office, wherever you want to go. But they work all around, right? You have a sales org, you have a internal HR org, and you have an external customer facing org. All of these things talk together.
Yeah, I think MCP is the new HTTP is an interesting idea. Certainly, everybody's talking about how we get all these agents work together, but it's. I've been talking to folks about it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the orchestration layer, because doesn't ultimately the orchestration piece have a call and sort of what agent does what work and calls what LLM? So orchestration could ultimately be the decider of who gets a bigger piece of kind of the AI budget pie, right?
I think partially, right? But I think there's a lot here to go around, right? It's not a small piece of pie; it's large pies with large pieces. I think the way I would look at it is it's really the consumer that you're trying to engage with. Now, for us, it's normally external consumers coming in, right, as a contact center service. For ServiceNow, it might be the internal consumer coming in, or the IT help desk consumer, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, I'll give you an example. There was a customer I talked to. They used Salesforce agents for sales use cases. So if somebody came in to talk to them about buying a SaaS service that they offered, then they used Genesys for support. But to talk between those, they literally had 3 sales agents with a Genesys license and 3 support agents with a Salesforce license, so that they can transfer people between them or have that conversation. And so what AI agents are doing is making that a little bit easier, right? So, hey, if I do start a service conversation and I have a sales question, I can go to an Agentforce agent using this MCP protocol, not having to worry about transferring over there, starting the context all over. Because that's probably the most frustrating thing, right? Is it's been frustrating for years when you go human to human and then human says, oh, how can I help you? Just spent 20 minutes dealing with somebody on how they can help me. How come you do not know this?
Yeah.
And how do we make that easier, right? And that's really where these MCP protocols are looking to revolutionize that, right? And agent to agent is just a layer on top of it. But how do I know that if you're in my support agent and then you have a billing dispute question, can I go ask the billing agent over living on top of the CRM data?
Yep.
Why did I get charged $20 extra this month? What did I subscribe to? Or, what Apple subscription got turned on my credit card? We can go ask that kind of thing, right, against these agents, get an answer, and then help that user in real time.
So the Salesforce example is interesting. Certainly the sort of CCaaS CRM convergence is something that we're talking about a lot these days. How do you see that, particularly given like the partnerships that Genesys has with some of the other CRM players moving forward? What's the role between CCaaS and CRM and kind of the overall customer experience?
I think they have to work hand in hand, right? They're not individual pieces. I don't think one system wins it all. Personally, I see multiple systems working together. Everyone's good at something, and then we have overlaps. But really, if you're looking at your business, right, it's what are the strategic partners I need to bring to the table to actually deliver the experience I want to deliver, right? It's not a single vendor. It's probably a multi-vendor strategy. And if those vendors don't talk together, right, then that multi-vendor strategy is becoming cumbersome on you. So how do you make that easier? How do you make all those vendors work together in a way where it's easy to integrate, but also it's driving that experience you want to deliver, right? Most customers are moving to that experience economy, right? Like a lot of companies out there might have competing products from other vendors, and people are looking at, hey, how do I move to the best experience I have, right? Because memorable experience is why I would come back.
Right.
Right.
But it's got to be more than the vendors just talking to each other. Really, to be able to leverage data across channels and across systems, they've got to have some deeper investment from a product perspective in integration, in roadmap, particularly as
and that's when I said talking together.
Yeah,
I'm thinking MCP protocols that are integrated and integrated together, right? Like, we are working with our partners across the board on things like MCP, A to A. How do we connect to those systems? But we're also trying to be good stewards, right? Like, how do we make it open for the partners we don't talk to, right? The ones that we don't have a strategic investment in, but if you look at our app foundry, we have tons of partners out there. How do they play in the same space?
Right. Because ultimately, helping customers put those pieces together is going to be critical if we think about kind of end-to-end AI.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that tends to get missed a lot is we talk a lot about virtual agents AI agents for the customers coming in, but we don't talk about AI for the employees, right? So supervisors and admins, and we are spending a lot of time in that space as well, right? Creating agentic systems to help supervisors find needles in the haystack, right? If you think of a supervisor, they're managing 50 agents on average during a shift. They're not going to know which call to go listen in on, or which call missed compliances. So using AI to do a lot of those kind of things and automating those tasks are another area where agentic is really going to learn from and drive those goals, right? Hey, I want to make sure agents don't go off the rails and are in adherence to our policy to say the disclosure, right? AI can listen in and now tell an agent in real time, hey, you're missing something, and a supervisor can jump in if before that call gets hung up, right? So we're starting to see a lot of those use cases as well, right? As with a customer yesterday, it's like, we love everything you do, but there's just so much. How do we know where to get started? So using things like anomaly detection and then tying it to agentic systems to say, hey, based off this anomaly, this is what you should do. And if you want me to remember that, I can remember that and go forward every time I see these anomalies and actually just course correct for you.
That's a really great example, because today, or in the recent past anyway, it's so much sort of luck and spot checking for a supervisor to really understand what's happening. The reality is today, AI could be listening to every call, and probably should be.
It should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, like think of ourselves, right? I got the AI companion on Zoom. Now I listen more to my Zoom calls than actually writing notes and action items. I just let that do it for me.
Yeah.
So AI, right, can take on a lot of those tasks that are repetitive and immediately drive that ROI, right? And it goes back into that, how does AI deliver that self-funding roadmap?
Yeah. As we think about, and you mentioned sort of headcount not changing, and obviously a lot of contact centers are trying to meet their SLAs with limited staff and limited resources, but they're also having to think differently about how they buy technology like Genesys, right? Because they're not necessarily paying on a per seat model anymore. Are you seeing customers want more predictability or more flexibility as they think about how they pay for AI in the contact center?
I think it's both. We hear both sides of that. We hear both sides of it from the same customer. I want flexibility on how I don't want to get locked into using one AI product, right? I don't want to buy chatbot minutes or agentic AI sessions. I want to buy a EDP, like spend on AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then make that flexible across what I need. Because I'm in a seasonal business, right? One month I might have a lot of consumers coming in, but then the next month I might have a lot of supervisor tasks going on, and vice versa, right? Maybe I have a lot of QM evaluations I want to do. So that's where we see a lot of benefits for our customers with our token system. We allow them to be tied into a global spend on AI, and it's very flexible across their use. We don't say, this token is just for Agent Copilot and this token is for a virtual agent. We just say, hey, you buy a set number of tokens and you use them however you use them, and we burn down.
Yeah, so that they can experiment with different use cases, roll out different agents, and address kind of seasonality and other factors that may change the flow of demand for AI throughout their business, as you said.
Yeah, it goes back to like SaaS licensing, right? Everyone wants consumption with some sort of EDP across it.
Right. Absolutely. Well, you know what? We only have a few minutes left, so I guess I will wake Patrick up for crunch time. Are you awake? So Rahul, this is the part where Patrick asks the questions. Well, not really. He wrote them, but I'll be asking them. So, what talent would you like to have?
That's a great question. I feel like love like multiple eyes and hands so I could actually do more work at the same time. But I don't know if that's a talent or like a superpower that I would like. I think I'd like to learn how to sing. I'm not really a good singer.
To sing. Okay. Interesting. We'll have to work on that.
I do a lot of car karaoke with my kids.
Well, we'll have to find a place to do karaoke at the next experience, and we can work on your singing.
Can get me in a lot of trouble.
What living person do you most admire?
I don't know. There's so many. A living person that I admire. Honestly, it's a bunch of those LLM researchers, right? Like the way that the guys, like the OpenAI guys, right, where they took a problem and actually solved it with AI. That promise of how AI actually works to, like, I've been in AI for over 15 years now, right?
Yeah.
And there's always been a promise of AI being able to do something. And we're at a point where we can actually do it, right? The whole agentic systems that can actually respond and answer from very little content is really something I admire, right? The people that have built a lot of those models and are continuing to invest there.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. We've all been hearing about AI being able to do this since Watson first came out.
Yeah, right? Like as part of the team that played Jeopardy, right?
Yep.
And it was impressive, but I think there's two parts to it, right? One was the technology has somewhat been there, a little bit limited, but when Watson played Jeopardy, there was probably quadruple the size of my house rooms of servers that had to run there, right? And that doesn't scale. So the fact that they were able to take AI, scale it at a level where every person can have it in their pocket. When I started at Watson, question was always, why do I need AI? Where now it's always, what AI do you have and how can you help me? How can I use it? Right. So that whole mindset has shifted. And a lot of it is due to the fact that AI is at our fingertips. All of our lives have gotten changed by these LLM models.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great answer. And you're right. It's kind of dramatically changed from what is it and why would I ever want it or need it? Oh yeah, Christine, Patrick always asks the good questions to what can I do with it and how can I consume it? Right?
Yeah.
One final question. This is Patrick's favorite. If you could come back as any person or thing, whom or what would you be?
I would be my dog. My dog has the best life. He chills out all day, goes for walks, and gets fed. I always joke, I don't think he's ever sat on anything that's not leather.
Your dog?
Yeah, my dog. Yeah, he's got a very chill life.
Well, that's a great place, I think, to wrap it up for today. A dog's life. Rahul, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts and insights. Really appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for joining today. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for having me.